Hi, everybody. Michelle here with Next Chapter Counseling. The question that I got this week that I will be answering is how can you make sure that you're maintaining connection with a partner when the two of you have schedules where you hardly ever see each other? So, this is a really great question to ask because I think it's become more and more common in the fast-paced society that we live in. So I really want to direct this question towards a particular group of couples. I think the suggestions that I'm going to give can apply to everybody in a relationship to some extent, especially those of you in long distance relationships where you are geographically far apart from one another. Also, those couples who may not be living together yet. So sometimes you might go days or a week without being able to see each other because you don't live together. These are good things for all of you couples out there. But I'm really going to direct this video towards those couples who are living together. And because of certain circumstances, you're like ships passing in the night. You may be in a situation where you guys work opposite shifts. You may have a situation going on where one or both of you is like working and in school. So unlike most couples where, just to kind of generalize here, most couples maybe come home around the same time, like 5 or 6 in the evening, and get a couple hours, even if they're busy doing other things, they have a couple hours at the end of the evening where they could be together. This doesn't apply to the couples I'm talking to today because these couples don't get that set time where they can connect like a lot of couples typically do, even if life is busy in other ways. So if this applies to you, you couples out there who don't hardly ever see each other because of other things going on like work or school, I'm talking to you. That's who this video is for. So I'm going to give 2 suggestions, and then at the very end, I'm just going to give some food for thought before we wrap it up. So the first suggestion that I want to give, which I'll be pretty surprised if you haven't already thought about this or been doing this to some extent with your partner, is to use technology. It is your friend. We have texting, we have video chats, we have good old-fashioned phone calls, we have lots of different ways to connect. Excuse me, and we want to take full advantage of this when it comes to being a couple that you guys don't really ever see each other in person very often. But I'm going to encourage you to maybe kick it up a notch from what you've been doing. So within this suggestion, I'm going to say, if you guys typically text, see if you can make time to talk on the phone or video chat. That's going to make the communication so much better when you guys are actually hearing each other's voices, actually able to see each other's faces. See if you can fit that in besides just typical texting. And also try to create some kind of routine or schedule around this. Again, I think it can be really common for couples to just like text each other when they get a spare moment, but there might be days where life is too busy and then you guys miss each other, and really try to be consistent about when you're going to connect. So setting something up, like if there's a specific time of day where you know you'll have time to connect, connecting at that time no matter what, or one of you or both of you committing to, like, I will text you or I will call you on every break that I get, making sure there's a routine around it and some predictability going on and how you're using technology so that it doesn't just feel random. Try to make sure that you guys know when you're going to connect. That's really important to have. So that's my first suggestion. Use technology and try to use it even more than maybe you already have been, or using it in a new way to make sure you're connecting when you're not in person together. Piggybacking off of that, I'm going to go the other way, which is that when you guys do actually have time in person together, then technology is no longer your friend. This is a common thing that I think most couples have heard at this point of, putting your phones down or turning off the TV to make sure you're having quality time together. But again, for you couples out there that don't get to see each other very often, this is all the more important for you. You don't get the luxury of like, oh, we have 2 hours to sit together on the couch, so it's not a big deal if like for 30 of those minutes we're each on our phones or whatever. No, you guys don't get a lot of time together. So when you are together, making sure that your phones are away, the TV's off. It's really, really important for you guys, more so than for other couples. The other thing that's more important for you guys than for other couples is that when you are in the same room together, make sure that you are having physical contact with one another. You may not be a touchy-feely couple naturally. That's okay, but I'm going to encourage you to really push each other in this regard, if it doesn't come naturally to you, to make sure that you are physically connecting with one another when you're in the same space. Whether it's holding hands, touching the other person's leg, giving a longer hug, whatever it may be, make sure that you guys are having physical contact, because that's a thing that's in short supply in your relationship because of the circumstances that you're in. Take advantage of every opportunity that you get, because like I just said, you need to do this more than other couples who can just kind of take this for granted. You don't get to. So take full advantage of that time that you have together in person to really not be distracted and to touch each other and maintain a physical connection in some way that feels comfortable and natural for you. So those are my 2 suggestions. And the last thing that I'm going to say before I wrap up this video, and like I said, this is kind of food for thought because this is going to be unique and different to each relationship and each situation, but to think to yourself if there is an end in sight to this situation. So for some of you out there may be a time where you know that life as it currently is going to end. Like, especially if you guys are not seeing each other because of school schedules or things like that. Well, school has an end date in sight. You know, graduation is coming at a certain point. So even if that deadline is still like 2 years away, you know that life is not always going to be like this, and that eventually you may be able to be like most other couples in the world and actually be able to see each other more. So that's helpful when there's a deadline in sight. Or for some of you out there, it might be a situation where there's like a certain time of year or a certain season where work gets really chaotic for one or both of you. So like one of you goes from working 40 hours a week to working like 65 hours a week, but you know that it's only going to last for a couple weeks or a couple months. And really, it's easy to endure that when you know it's not going to be forever. So that's a good thing when there's an end in sight to circumstances like this. But I also know that there may be some of you out there, and this is where I want you to think really hard if this applies to you. There are some of you out there where there may not be an end in sight. You may have been working these same shifts for years at your respective jobs, and it may be hitting you that, wow, this is taking a toll on us. Like not really being able to have a lot of time together. And if there's not an end in sight, like if you both plan to, stay at your jobs for a while in the future or things like that, you may really need to sit down and do some soul searching and talk with your partner about if this is actually sustainable. Part of being in a relationship is making time for each other and being able to do things together. And you guys aren't making time for each other, not because you don't want to. Of course you want to. Again, this is just life. This is each of you just doing what you need to do. And it results in you having little time together as a couple. But actually really think about if maybe a change does need to happen. Could one of you change jobs or change shifts or do something different so that you each get a little more time together than you do right now? Again, I'm not going to give a definitive answer on this or say that you have to make a change, because it's not that simple. But I think it's worth sitting down and at least talking about it and considering what your other options may be, because you want this relationship to last for the long haul and you want it to be sustainable. And part of that is really making sure that you have time as a couple to really connect. It's crucial. It's really important. And sometimes that means changes need to happen in order for that to happen. So just something to think about and talk about with your partner. Again, if there's an end in sight, you're probably pretty okay. Still do the suggestions that I named, but there's an end coming. It's easier to get through it than couples where this has been going on for a long time and may continue to go on for a long time. Have a heart-to-heart talk, figure out if this is what's best for the two of you in your relationship. So that's what I got for you all for today. To recap, basically use technology when you're not together. When you are together, don't use technology and really make sure that you're focusing on each other and having a physical connection when you're in each other's presence. So if you have a question for me, send me an email, nextchapter.michelle@gmail.com, and I'll get to it in a future video. All right, thanks everybody. See you next week.